Welcome, everybody, into an all-new episode of Fighting Lines with Brian Ciano. Took a little time off there as we took a nice little break during some of those lighter cards, but now we are back in action here, breaking down all we are going to see this weekend, breaking down the fights we saw over the last couple weeks, and maybe even getting into some other thoughts throughout the show. Thank you so much for joining us. Make sure you follow us on X at Fighting Lines. Follow us on Instagram, Facebook, and YouTube at Fighting Lines Pod. Like and subscribe on YouTube, Spotify, Apple. Get involved wherever you are checking out the show. We got a good one here for you this week. First up, we're going to preview UFC 321, Aspinall versus Gane in Abu Dhabi. Two titles on the line on this one, of course, as we just mentioned. Heavyweight title is there in play, of course, with Aspinall and Gane. You also have the women's vacant strawweight title on the line as well with Dern and Jandiroba. We're going to talk about both those fights as well as pretty much the whole main card. Give you our picks, our preview, and some bets that we like in that card. We'll also preview this weekend's action with BKFC 83, also overseas, a little bit closer to home, but still overseas in Rome, Italy, as they make their second jaunt over to the boot in the Mediterranean there. BKFC having title on the line there as well with Camozzi versus Sakara for the cruiserweight title. Also, the beginning of the lightweight tournament there between Ben Bonner and Franco Tenaglia. Will break down some of the top fights on that card and give our picks for those winners as well. We'll also touch on some of the fights we saw over the last couple weeks. There were two UFC cards, two UFC Fight Nights while we were away. We had the Fight Night first down in Brazil between Oliveira and Gamrot. Had to unfortunately cut out a preview of that one at the last episode because of some technical issues that made us get the episode up later, but a good card with some top fights there. Then we'll get into the card we saw last week up in Vancouver between DeRitter and Allen. You also had a card for the BKFC last week in Hammond, Indiana, a fight night for them between Henry and Stewart. We'll touch on some of the top fights for that one and what it can mean in some various divisions. And we'll also give our thoughts on some other things going on. There's a boxing fight over the pond this weekend over in the UK for the heavyweights, banging there as well with the title on the line. We'll give some thoughts as well on maybe some issues that I have with combat sports and things that have gone on recently. Touch on all that on this show, Fighting Lines with Brian Ciano. Like I said, make sure you follow us, like, subscribe, review on Apple, Spotify, YouTube. Follow us on X at Fighting Lines, Instagram, Facebook, YouTube at Fighting Lines Pod. Let's get right into the action. Start talking about this weekend's big UFC card overseas. Let's, of course, start off talking about the big pay-per-view this weekend for the UFC over in Abu Dhabi. Afternoon time here on the East Coast, 2 o'clock Eastern on Saturday in the U.S. So make sure you are ready for that early on. It's going to be headlined by the heavyweight title, the interim champ Tom Aspinall going against number one contender Cyril Gane. Of course, this is for the main heavyweight title because John Jones had that belt, then retired, and of course playing these games of is he retired or is he not, voiding Aspinall. Now all of a sudden wants to come back for the White House card, talks about maybe him against Pereira. Now Pereira's talking about moving up to heavyweight, but either way, this is for the heavyweight battle, no more interim. This is for whoever wins this is the heavyweight champ of the UFC currently for the time. And it's going to involve Gane, the 35-year-old from France, former interim heavyweight champ here himself, 13-2 in his career, 10-2 in the UFC. 4 by decision, 4 by KO, TKO, 2 submissions as far as his record goes in the UFC. Only losses in his career. Ngannou, John Jones. So only the top have beaten him, only the champs. Now, Aspinall himself is the current interim title holder, so he is a champ. 32-year-old from the UK, 15-3 in his career, 8-1 in the UFC, has never gone more than 69 seconds into round 2 in any of his UFC fights. 6 of his wins are by KO, TKO. Only losses were by injury to Curtis Blades in the UFC. So this man has been through just about everybody. Of course, has not, unfortunately, gotten to fight the best of the last decade as far as the title holders like Ngannou, like Jones, like Stipe. So now he's going to test himself against the highest level, against a guy who, of course, has been to the top with that belt in Cyril Gane. Gane's going to have a little bit of a reach advantage here. 3 inches. Okay, a little bit, but not much. Aspinall, he has better numbers in significant strikes landed per minute, takedowns average, and submissions average. So just about everything except reach, he's got the better numbers. He's never gone the distance in any of his fights. He's got KO, TKOs in 80% of his fights. 46% of Gane's have been by that way. But his average fight time is about 14 minutes and 15 seconds. Aspinall's 2 minutes and 2 seconds. Aspinall goes in there, throws some heavy hands, gets the job done. He's a huge favorite, almost 5-1 here at minus 460. He is my pick to win the fight and continue to hold this title. But that's way too much for me to bet. So what's the other ways we can play this? You can try to go Aspinall by KO, TKO at minus 110. The total rounds is right around the under is 1.5 is minus 106. So it's tough. You know, he's a fast finisher. Do you want to go with the under, or do you want to take the chance that Gane can kind of neutralize him for a little bit here and get it into the late second, third round? I don't know. The way I'm going to play it, Aspinall to win by KO, TKO in rounds 1, 2, or 3 at plus 110. You get a little plus value money there. You still get the finish by Aspinall, and it gives us a little bit of buffer in case Gane is able to drag her into not deep waters, but slightly deeper than the ankle deep he's gone so far in his career. You can also go Aspinall in 1 or 2 at plus 155 to get some better juice. I'm going to take the extra round just to be safe here, plus 110. Aspinall hasn't been in there in a while. Gane is a tough level opponent. I'm going to go Aspinall by in rounds 1, 2, or 3 by KO, TKO plus 110. Other title on the line in this card, you have the women's strawweight title between Virna Jandiroba, the number 1 in this division, and number 5, Mackenzie Dern. Now, this, of course, is a belt that was held by Zhang Weili, who gave that belt up to move up and fight Valentina Shevchenko next month for the 125-pound title. So that leaves it up for grabs, and these two are involved. This is a rematch between these two BJJ black belts. They fought in 2020, which Dern won that fight. Interesting fight. Dern was dominating on the feet. Jandiroba had trouble trying to get it to the ground. Dern get the win. The 32-year-old Brazilian/American. Of course, she was born in America, but spent a lot of time growing up in Brazil, where her father is from. She's 15-5 in her career, 10-5 in the UFC. On a 2-fight win streak after losing 4 or 6. Came in with a lot of high hopes as the badass Brazilian jiu-jitsu black belt that she was. Had some early success, then had some big-time struggles. Now has rebounded. Of course, had a lot of things going on in her personal life during that time that could have distracted her and caused issues. Now she seems focused. Now she is probably better than she's been stand-up in a long time. But you know what? So is Jandiroba here, the 37-year-old Brazilian. She's 22-3 in her career, 8-3 in the UFC on a 5-fight win streak. So I know that Dern won this first fight. She lands more significant strikes per minute. Jandiroba gets more takedowns, though. So with 2 BJJ black belts, that could be a big factor here. Does Dern keep it standing? Does Jandiroba get it to the ground and get dominant position? Or, you know, is it a situation where she doesn't want to take it to the ground as much? I don't know. That's her bread and butter. That's where I think she wants to lean in this one. And I'm kind of leaning that she's going to get this fight. I like Jandiroba kind of going as the underdog at plus 138. That's not hugely sold on it. I'm not betting the house on it. That's not my best bet. If I'm looking for a best bet in this fight, I'm going to say it goes the distance at minus 106, yes. Both these women are BJJ practitioners. Both love the ground. Dern does better on the feet, but goes to decision almost half the time in her wins as well. So if she doesn't get the finish on the ground, she doesn't get the finish. She's decent with the hands, but doesn't get finishes like that. So I think they both like to go deep in the fight. If you look at the average fight time for them, it's 12:04 or 13:27. They go late into these fights for most of their fights, even when they get the finish. So I'm going to take the chance we go all 5 rounds here and take the yes at minus 106. The over 4.5 rounds is where the juice is right now for the books. That's minus 120. So they think it's going the distance. And by points is minus 110. So I'm going to say that it will go the distance at minus 106. You can also play maybe that Jandiroba to win and round 4 to start at plus 220 if you want some really good juice. But then that's picking one side. I'm going to play a little safer, say whoever wins, we go in the judges' hands. So that's the way I'm playing that one. Then at Bantamweight, you have a big fight between number 2, Umar Nurmagomedov, and number 9, Mario Bautista. Nurmagomedov, of course, a 29-year-old Dagestani, part of that Nurmagomedov clan that we've been talking about so much over the last decade in MMA, in the UFC, in the PFL. This guy has a long track record of badasses in his family. He is one of them as well as 18-1 in his career. Only loss was his last fight where he lost to Dvalishvili for the title earlier this year. 62% significant strike accuracy, 3.26 takedown average per 15 minutes. So he can beat you on the feet. He can beat you on the ground. Either way, he beat you. The only guy he's lost to was a champ who's beaten everybody. Bautista, the 32-year-old U.S. fighter, is 16-2 in his career, 10-2 in the UFC with 8 wins in a row right now. So he's on a heater right now with a great streak. Now, Bautista lands more significant strikes per minute, but neither of these guys are big finisher. Neither of these guys gets the knockdowns. They are more volume strikers. Problem with Bautista is he also takes a lot more. He takes more damage, 4.45 significant strikes per minute. That's almost twice as much as Umar takes. Now, 50% of Nurmagomedov's wins and 44% of Bautista's wins are by decision. They both are pretty good with submission too, 39 and 38%. So it's usually they get the finish on the ground or they take it the distance. I like Nurmagomedov, a minus 650. Huge favorite. Not the way you really want to play it. Last 3 of Nurmagomedov and 4 of his last 5 have gone decision. Last 4 of Bautista's fights have gone decision. So the fight ending by points is a huge favorite at minus 225. Over the 2.5 rounds is even bigger at minus 270. So if you want to get something within bounds of playing, Nurmagomedov by points at minus 145 is what I would look for this fight. Then also at heavyweight on this main card, you have number 2, Alexander Volkov versus number 5, Halton Almeida. Volkov, the 36-year-old Russian, 6'7" fighter, one of the biggest guys in MMA today. 38-11 for his career, 12-5 in the UFC. He's won 4 in a row before he lost to Gane last December by split decision. Now he hasn't fought since then, coming back here against Almeida. The only losses in Volkov's career are to Lewis, Blades, Gane twice, and Aspinall. So it takes a really good fighter to beat this guy, of course. And that Lewis fight, he had him for 4.5 rounds and then got caught by the Black Beast at the end there, one of the craziest fights I've ever seen. Almeida, 34-year-old Brazilian, 22-3 for his career, 8-1 in the UFC. Came in through the Contender Series, now has been a good streak ever since. Won his last 2 fights. His only loss is to Curtis Blades as well. Volkov, most of his wins are by KO TKO. Almeida, most of his wins by submission. So it's going to be completely who controls the action. Now, Volkov has some decent ground game as well, but when he gets these high-level grapplers, that's where he starts to struggle. That's where he has issues. And Almeida, 6.58 takedowns per 15 minutes. Now, Volkov has a great takedown defense at 72%, but you know what? I remember that Blades fight with him getting tossed around like a rag doll. Takedown after takedown after takedown. Set a heavyweight record and was one of the UFC records until, guys like Dvalishvili came around and started tossing guys around like Sandhagen. So this guy can be taken down by someone who is really good at it. I'm going to go with Almeida then. Minus 215. He is the stronger fighter in his strength and discipline, I think, with the ground game. I think he'll be able to get Volkov down. It might not be easy, obviously, because Volkov can stop the takedown, but I think those long limbs, Almeida just doing his thing and trying to get it over and over, I think he does get him down. And eventually, I think he gets a submission at plus 160. That's where the value plays in this one. That's where the better odds are. I mean, if Tom Aspinall sub Volkov, why can't Almeida, whose bread and butter is the submission? Aspinall is a badass. He has, some submission wins, but mostly he likes to pound your face in. Volkov got subbed by him. I think Almeida can do it too at plus 160. Then to start things off on the main card, you have a light heavyweight battle between number 7, Alexander Rakic, and number 10, Azamat Murzakanov. Murzakanov, the 36-year-old Russian, 15-0, unbeaten in his MMA career, 5-0 in the UFC. 4 of those ending by KO TKO. So the guy likes to stand and trade and bang. Rakic, the 33-year-old Austrian, he's game to do that as well. 14-5 in his career, but only 6-4 in the UFC. He's had struggles here against some of the top opponents. Had a great start in his UFC career. Now he's struggled, lost 3 in a row. Of course, those 3 fights were Blachowicz in 2022, Prochazka, and Ankalaev last year. So he fights the best guys, and when he does that, that's when he struggles. Those 3 guys all fought him, beat him, and then moved on to fight for the light heavyweight title. So does that go for the Russian as well? Not yet. Even if he gets his win in spectacular fashion, Oldberg, I think, is in line for the next shot if Pereira hangs around and defends it. If he does not, and he gives up to move up to heavyweight, well, then you probably have a situation where Oldberg fights Prochazka, who had a great fight right after him, the week after. So I think those 2 are the next ones in line, whether it's against each other or against Pereira. So then Murzakanov would have to wait, maybe even get another fight after that. But this could put him in that title picture here, especially given the way the rest of that division shakes out with the rankings. Now, Rocky's going to have a 6-inch height, a 6.5-inch reach advantage, and 5-inch leg reach advantage. So in the striking battle, that can help you. Both guys land a lot of significant strikes. Both guys win by strike. 64% of Murzakonov's wins are by KO TKO, 73% of Rakic's. Murzakanov has 3 times the knockdown average, though. He's got a bigger power difference than Rakic does. He's the one that's going to put you on the mat with those shots. So I'm leaning towards him at minus 120. He is my pick right now on the money line. Decent value there. You can go Murzakanov by KO TKO at plus 190 to get even better value. But where you really want to play this, where my favorite pick is, that it ends by KO TKO, minus 110. Both these guys like to end it in strikes. I'm leaning towards the Russian, but if I get both guys involved in this, where either one gets finished, I get the win, that's what I'm going with here at -110. So just to recap, my favorite picks for this card, the 3 ones that I'm putting in my plays for sure. There's a bunch of them I gave you that you can play one way or another, get some value here, get some chances there. The 3 that I love the best on this card. Number 1, Aspinall to win by KO TKO in round 1, 2, or 3 at +110. Jandiroba Dern to go the distance at -106, yes. And Rakic Murzakanov, fight ends by KO TKO at -110. Now, those aren't in necessarily any particular order, but those are my top 3 picks for UFC 321, the pay-per-view that we're about to watch this weekend. Now, the UFC isn't the only one out of the country for their action this weekend. We've had a lot of that lately, and we're getting that in all 3 fight cards that we're talking about this weekend. BKFC is doing that as well. They are over in Rome, Italy for BKFC 83 Camozzi versus Sakara. That's going to be at 2 o'clock Eastern on the BKFC app. So all of them happening around the same time too. So make sure you get some DVR or some apps going where you can take these things and watch them all later on if you have the time, or just try to get multiple screens going, because there's going to be a lot of action midday on Saturday amidst all the college football we have going on as well. BKFC 83, as we said, over in Rome, championship fight for the cruiserweight division. That is, of course, between Chris Camozzi, the current champion, and Alessio Sakara. Going to be a very interesting fight. Of course, Camozzi, the 38-year-old from Colorado, has that Italian roots, fought over there in Italy in his last fight, where he beat, of course, Andrea Richhi, the Italian who got jumped in there in a Rocky situation. Literally Rocky the movie, not Rocky is in troubling situation, in a Rocky situation. He lost by unanimous decision. Camozzi kept the belt, and now he fights Sakara. Of course, Sakara, the 44-year-old, is from Italy as well. Former UFC and Bellator fighter, 20-13 in MMA for his career, 1-0 in bare knuckle MMA, 1-0 in the BKFC, coming off a second-round finish over Eric Lozano in his first fight. Now, Camozzi's finished a bunch of guys over his career, lots of fights, 27-15 for the former UFC and PFL fighter, 4-1 in the BKFC. His only loss, of course, to Lorenzo Hunt. Lots of finishes in that card besides his last fight. So this guy has been around the block. This guy has power. Can he do it against Sakara, who's a very dangerous fighter and going to have, of course, the Italian fans behind him? I think he does. Camozzi -240 is my pick to win that fight. I think he gets it by TKO, probably in the second or third round. But I think Chris Camozzi holds on to the cruiserweight title and gets his second win in Italy to hold on to this BKFC belt. Then you also have the beginning of the lightweight tournament going on this fight card as well. This is a weird situation, of course, because now you have, starting off, these two. It's going to be Ben Bonner and Franco Tenaglia. Technically, Franco Tenaglia was the former champ. Ben Bonner is the current champ. Tenaglia, the 29-year-old Argentinian who now makes his home in Spain and fights there a lot. He's a former BKFC lightweight champ. He got stripped after he won the title against Tony Soto in Spain and then started fighting in other organizations. Now, he'd done that before. He'd fought MMA in Spain before. But BKFC doesn't like it when you are a champion and you go fight somewhere else. Not good look for them if you lose. So he fought 2 MMA fights in Spain this year. Fought a glove boxing fight as well just 2 weeks ago. So the guy has been busy. Now trying to regain his title in the BKFC, where he is unbeaten, 4-0 for his career there. Coming off in the BKFC, a majority decision win last October over Tony Soto, as we said. They're supposed to be rematched in Texas as well, because that was the fight of the year last year. They said, all right, let's do it again for this title again. He got pulled late because they found out all these other fights he did, and they threw in Ben Bonner on short notice, the 34-year-old from the UK. Bare knuckle fighter, never been an MMA fighter, never been a boxer with gloves, has been just a bare knuckle fighter for his career. Bonner is 4-1 in the BKFC. His first 4 all ended before the final bell. Coming off a unanimous decision win over Tony Soto, though. Flew to Texas over the pond last minute in June and shocked him, shocked everybody, took the belt. Short notice, battered him. 2 knockdowns early in the fight, in the first and second round, cruises to unanimous decision win. A great win for him, and now he'll see if he can do that against Tenaglia. Now, while I was incredibly impressed with what Bonner did, I think he's a badass. I think he's a great bare-knuckle fighter. I think he caught people by shock a little bit against Tony Soto. No disrespect to what his record was before with the fights he had over in Europe, but coming over on short notice, long flight all the way to Texas against a guy who was in the top of that division, Tony Soto, I think people thought it was going to be Loco Soto's night. And Ben Bonner came in there and shocked them. Early knockdowns just helped him control the rest of that fight. I don't think you get that now against Tenaglia. He's going to be pissed that he wants his belt back. He's very violent, very badass, And he saw what you did against Soto, so he's going to respect you as well. I think Tenaglia gets the win here at minus 143. I'm going to take it by unanimous decision if you can get those kind of odds somewhere on one of these books. But just on the money line, he's minus 143. I think he gets the win here. And a big part of that is he's going to have a big reach advantage, 9-inch reach advantage. Against a striker like that, against a guy like that who's violent, who can throw from all different angles, who doesn't care where you are, if he can get that distance and keep you at bay and not take your shots, that's going to make it an easier night from him. And I think he'll do that with some great movement. Tenaglia minus 143. Then at middleweight, you also have Francesco Richhi versus Joseph Hala. Hala, the 30-year-old from Czechia, is the berserker. He's 4-0 in bare knuckle fighting. He was a champion in Prague bare knuckle fighting before coming over to the BKFC, where he is 1-0. All 4 of his fights have ended by KO TKO. His last fight was a first-round TKO over Carpentieri in Italy in April. Now going back to April to fight Richhi, who is the Italian, the 31-year-old. Makes his time in Florida, lives there, loves it, but originally from Italy. So, of course, the guy you got to get on this card. 7-2 in the BKFC. Started off 4-0. Has struggled since then, 3-2, but he's coming off back-to-back wins over Blake Lacaze by unanimous decision and Dallas Davidson by second-round KO in July. He's going to have a 5-inch height, 6.5-inch reach, and whole crowd advantage here. I'm going with Francesco Richhi. Minus 594 is what he is on the money line. I think he does it by TKO in the 4th round, somewhere there late in the fight. No disrespect to Hala, but I think Richhi with that long reach is going to be able to pick him apart and then throw some power shots late to finish it. You also have a great fight at welterweight between Jimmy Sweeney and Carlos Trinidad-Snake. This is a very important fight in this division, given that Trout gave up the belt, and now Julian Lane has it. These are 2 guys that can get in the mix, especially CTS if he gets a win here. Sweeney, the 40-year-old from Ireland, is a longtime bare knuckle fighter. 29-4 in bare knuckle fighting. Not in MMA, not combined combat sports record. This guy has been throwing bare fists for a long time and has been doing it well. He had lots of fights being for titles, whether it's defending it or fighting for it in other organizations, but is now 0-1 in the BKFC. Lost a 6-round decision to Rico Franco in Italy in April. This was a badass fight between these 2 guys. They had a long rivalry from their years in other organizations, came over to settle it finally in the BKFC, and ends up on the losing end of a great fight that went an extra round. Trinidad-Snake, the 29-year-old from Nebraska, former MMA fighter who is 6-1 in the BKFC. His only loss was his last fight, and that was over in Dubai in a 6-round decision to Austin Trout for the title. Honestly, I don't know why he went 6 rounds. CTS did not look like himself that whole fight. He was very cautious, barely threw. Shouldn't have gone to a 6th round. It should have been easily a 5-round decision unanimously for Austin Trout to hold on to that title. I don't know how it got to a 6th round. I don't know how someone had it as a split decision. Didn't fight well. Wasn't himself. Trout held on to that title easily. And now I think he's going to come in hungry, going to come in pissed. And against a guy like Sweeney, he's not going to be able to sit back. Styles make fights. Sweeney's a violent guy, an aggressive guy, going to come forward. He's going to make him fight. That's going to work out well for Trinidad-Snake, I think, because he's going to have a 10-inch reach advantage. Are you kidding me? I could be wrong, but that's what they have listed on the BKFC site. Those are the measurements they have for these guys, a 10-inch reach advantage. He's good at striking from the outside and picking apart opponents. So if Sweeney's coming forward, as long as he can move those feet, get out of the way, not get caught against the ropes, I think he does damage from the outside. And the books like him. He's a minus 259 favorite on the money line. I think he gets it, but I think we go all 5. Maybe even a 6, but I think he gets a decision win here over Sweeney. Then, last one we're going to talk about in detail is the featherweight battle between Dan Chapman and James Get Down Brown. Get Down Brown, the 32-year-old from North Carolina, 4-1 in the BKFC, coming off a unanimous decision win over Figueroa in April. Of course, his only loss is to one of the toughest in the featherweight or lightweight divisions in H.G. Davis. Chapman, 35-year-old from Wales, is 6-0 in bare knuckle fighting, 1-0 in the BKFC, coming off a first-round TKO win over Rakic in Spain in October. It's going to be all about the control of the style of this one as well. Chapman, if he wants to win, he's got to get it close, make it a dirty fight, fight in the phone booth, fight in the clinch, things like that. Brown, he's tall for this division. He's big. He's lanky. Got to keep it at distance. Got to keep his opponent at bay. He's going to have almost an 11-inch reach advantage if you follow the way the measurements are listed on the BKFC site. So if this guy's going to have almost a foot of reach, how do you get in there? How do you let him get there? You just hold the fist out? Nope. 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 That's what it should be, all fight for James Get Down Brown as Chapman tries to come forward. I like him as an underdog here, plus 152 on the money line. I'm going to take him, and I think it's by decision. The only one loss that Get Down Brown has is to another tall guy in H.G. Davis. Otherwise, he can control distance against these smaller guys in this division. So I think he's going to do that same thing here against Chapman here in this featherweight battle. You also have some great fights that you got to keep an eye out for. You got Hayes Heppy on the card. You got Andrea Beachy, who we mentioned previously, is getting into that Camozzi fight and getting that Rocky story. Chance at the champ out of nowhere. Well, he's going to be back on the card as well with the fans behind him. Should be an awesome card in Italy for the BKFC, their second time over there in the Mediterranean boot. And, you know, if you like blood and you like tats, this is your card. Half these guys have more ink on them than the Sunday New York Times. So there's going to be a lot of ounce and a lot of guys in there with some ink, some good, some bad, some ugly, but a lot of it's going to be covered with blood, and you're not going to see it by the end of the fight anyway. Awesome card for the BKFC over in Italy that we'll be checking out on Saturday afternoon. Now, before we jump back and look at some of the action that we had over the last couple of weeks in the UFC and the BKFC, we got to mention a fight that's going over in boxing as well, over the pond, over in the UK at the O2 Arena in London on DAZN pay-per-view. It's going to be a heavyweight title fight between Joseph Parker and Fabio Wardley for Parker's WBO heavyweight interim title, and probably a shot at Usyk or others for the guy who wins this fight. Now, both these guys are big-time heavyweights. Wardley, the 30-year-old from England, 19-0-1 in his career with 18 KOs. Beat Eric Molina, and that's probably the biggest name he's had on his list. Was fighting against Honey in his last fight, was kind of outboxed for 9 rounds, and then luckily caught the big guy with a 10th round KO kind of out of nowhere flash knockout. So that's where he gets himself into this picture here against Parker, the 33-year-old from New Zealand. 36-3 for his career, 24 wins by KO. He's on a 6-fight win streak right now. Has beaten Derek Chisora 2 times, beat Deontay Wilder, was actually the mandatory challenger for Usyk for the WBO title, but then Usyk has pulled out because of injury, asked for more time for the organization, so he keeps his belt. He's still a Parker as an interim champ, and now he'll put that up against Wardley here. Whoever wins this one, of course, as I said, probably getting a shot at Usyk, maybe a Tyson Fury if he comes back, maybe Anthony Joshua, you know, some of these other guys that have been in the heavyweight mix that we're still kind of waiting to see what is going on with them. But this is a big fight in boxing right now for this division. Parker, a big favorite, even though, of course, Wardley is going to be at home in the UK. Parker is minus 450 on the money line. I think he's going to win the fight. Better way to play it. Even though both these guys have some knockouts, when they fight the better competition, when they fight the more skilled fighters in the heavyweight division that have some better chins, they go deep, if not go all the way. So I'm going to say Parker by points or decision at plus 200. Big fight for heavyweights over in Britain. Title on the line. We'll see how that one goes. All right, let's touch on some of the action we saw over the last couple weeks in the UFC and BKFC and the cards that they had. We saw 2 UFC fight nights. Let's start down in Brazil. We had Oliveira versus Gamrot headlining that one, of course, October 11th. And it was a good night for the Brazilian. Oliveira got the second round rear naked choke over Gamrot. Of course, Gamrot came in on short notice after Fiziev pulled out. And people were worried that this was going to be a big change for Oliveira, you know, changing that opponent late. What would he look like? He's had some struggles lately. Maybe he was getting back in there too quick. He looked great. Man at home looked awesome with his fans behind him. He looked so good. He even had Renato Moicano talking about how he dodged a bullet because he was one of the guys calling to jump in there on short notice. He didn't get the chance. And after he saw what Oliveira did to Gamrot, he said, you know what? It's probably good that I didn't get that fight. Oliveira just did his thing, steamrolling through him, gets the second round rear naked choke, gets back in the winning ways, and makes people remember what he was when he was the champ, and maybe he can get back into that form. Also on that card, speaking of former champs, you had Davison Figueiredo pull off a big upset over Jackson. He was a plus 275 underdog. That's right, the former champion, different division here now, of course, has had some struggles. He gets a split decision win to bounce back after the back-to-back losses to Corey Sandhagen and Peter Yan. What's next for him now, though? Does he fight Sandhagen again in a rematch? Does he fight Song Yadong, who's ahead of him in the rankings? I mean, there aren't too many other fights that are available with those guys that are ahead of him. But we'll see what the UFC makes for him. It could be very interesting if Davison Figueiredo can, fight at top level. Of course, it was a tight win for him, but he still gets the win and pays off some big bets for some people. Also on that card, You had a dominating performance by Joel Alvarez, of course, fighting Vicente Luque. Luque, a guy who was one of the top guys in that division for a while there, has fallen on some harder times, and it just gets worse for him. Got to the point that Alvarez even got a 10-8 round. He wins 30-26 on all three cards. Outlanded Luque 197 to 31. 197 to 31. Damn. Now Alvarez has won 4 in a row. Probably should be in that top 15. You know, the last few guys on that list there, the 13th, 14th, 15th in that division, they've won 3 in a row. Alvarez won 4 in a row and beat a guy like Luque who, you know, was one of the stalwarts in this division for a couple of years and dominated him like that. You got to give the guy some love and get him a ranking number there. We'll see if that goes on next. But now let's change up and see what else we saw from the UFC over these past couple weeks. Now, right after that Brazil card, the UFC flew north, had to put on that parka, got a little colder as they went up to Canada, to Vancouver, and they fought a fight night card there last weekend. Now, it was a good night for Canadian fighters. Right after Thanksgiving up in Canada, Canadian fans had something to be thankful for. It was a lot of wins because 5 of the 6 Canadians that were on the main card won their fight. Only one loss by Jasovicius. Dominating performance by her opponent there. Otherwise, Canadians pretty much swept the main card. Let's start at the bottom. You had Charles Jourdain, the nice first-round submission of Davey Grant, his second win in a row. Both of those are by submission, getting his name known back there in the UFC. You also had a win from Manon Fior. She is the only non-Canadian to win on the main card. She stunned Jasovicius. She hit her with a big left 1 minute in, got right on top of her, threw some knees, ground and pounded, got her way to victory there. Now, of course, is the top-ranked challenger in that division at 125. You have to wait her turn still, though. Of course, she was coming off a loss to Shevchenko. This one probably doesn't put her right back in there because, obviously, as we said, Shevchenko has a fight against Zhang coming up next month. So we'll see if she gets the next shot at the winner of that fight, whether it's Weili or Shevchenko, if she gets a rematch with Shevchenko, or if Valentina wins, maybe the UFC makes her fight one more time to hold on to that top ranking and that title picture. We'll see. But she made a statement win for herself against the Canadian up there in Vancouver. Now, getting back to Canadians winning, you had a nice win for Aliman Zahabi, of course, of TriStar Gym. His brother runs TriStar Gym, of course, been the main trainer there for a long time. He's been there in the fold, helping others and furthering their career, now doing great things with his. He gets a split decision win over Chito Vera in a tough fight. He's now won 7 fights in a row. Going to be on the shelf for a little bit while, though, because he broke his arm in that fight. So he still fought through it, put on a great performance, and did enough to get the split decision win. Chito Vera wasn't too happy with the judging, but still, in the end, Zahabi gets the win. He had surgery right away after he got back to Montreal, so he'll be out for a couple weeks, take the rest of 2025 off, but he says we'll see him early again in 2026 and see if he can get 8 wins in a row and start chasing down that GSP record of most wins by a Canadian fighter. Got a ways to go because it's 13, but still on his way there with 7 already. You also had a win by Mike Malott, who got the unanimous decision win over Kevin Holland. Holland took 2 cross shots early in the fight, did not look the same. Malott did not lose any points for that. And Kevin Holland just got dominated the rest of the fight. That's now his 2nd loss in a row, and was very honest after the fight, saying he sucks and never bet on him again. I don't know if that stemmed from some people, you know, giving him some heat online about his performance, but he definitely wasn't happy with the way he performed and didn't trust his performance for anybody in the future. We'll see if he bounces back. You know, he had a busy year, fighting a lot this year, but went under 500. 5 fights, 2 and 3 for the year. Maybe needs to take some time off, regroup, get back in the gym there and tweak some things and hopefully come back stronger in 2026. And then, of course, the main event. You had an upset here where Brendan Allen gets the TKO win over RDR, who couldn't get off the stool after the 4th round. His corner throws in the towel, says that's it, doesn't go to the 5th round, and Allen gets the win here. Interesting fight. RDR actually outstruck Allen in the beginning. He got the only takedown the 1st round as well. But as you got to the 2nd round, Allen got better. And in the 3rd and the 4th, it was all him. He was dominating RDR. You could see that he was just gassed. He didn't have anything left. And we'll talk a little bit more about that in just a minute. But Allen gets the win and now takes out the title hopeful on RDR and maybe puts his name in the title picture in that division. We shall see. But a great night and a great week for Canadians, something for them to be thankful for after they just had Canadian Thanksgiving, and it was a big card of wins for Canadian fighters in the UFC. The BKFC also had a fight night card last weekend, and that was in Hammond, Indiana. Middleweights were the top of that card, and that is where I'm going to focus. These two top fights, what really mattered the most. There's some good action all around, but let's just focus on the two main fights, including the main event there between Bryce Baby Yaya Henry and Roderick Stewart, where Henry gets the win by second round KO. And not only did he beat the guy up, but he added insult to injury as well. I mean, I don't know if you saw this. In the middle of the fight, in between the first and second round, he's not sitting there in the corner discussing strategy with his team. He's playing chess. I mean, that's how high-level mental games he was playing with his opponent, that he was sitting there playing a quick game of chess in between rounds. Now, obviously, didn't finish it. I can do that in a minute, but just making his point that wasn't even worried about his opponent after getting a knockdown the first round, gets another one in the second round, and finishes it with a third one right before the end of the round, and stops it before the end of the second round. He gets the victory. I mean, if you look at the BKFC site, he's not in the rankings anywhere. How's this guy not ranked? How's this guy not in the title picture? That's crazy. We got to fix that, whether it's fixing the rankings or fixing the site when he should be there. One way or another, Baby Yaya is doing some damn good fighting and needs to get his name mentioned against some of the best here in the BKFC. Also, at middleweight, you had a battle between Cameron Van Camp, where he beats Derek Finley by second round TKO. A good win for Van Camp. Had the whole Indiana garb afterwards, had the Pacers jersey out there, the shorts and the jersey. Played up to the hometown crowd. He did a great job to get the win over Derek Finley. All right, so we had some great action last weekend between the BKFC and the UFC. We got a loaded card Saturday afternoon all around. You got a UFC pay-per-view. You got a BKFC fight card over in Italy. You got a boxing pay-per-view with heavyweight title on the line. So plenty of action to get involved in. Hopefully you enjoy all of that. But before we get out of here, I got a bone to pick with the combat sports world in general. I need more transparency. Now, a lot of times we talk about that with just the UFC. This isn't just a call out on them. Now, there's plenty to do with them, and they have a lot of it going on, but combat sports in general needs to be more upfront with us, because there's a lot of money being put on the line with betting, and with that coming, you got to make sure you let people know what's going on. Because look at this. We have this fight this last weekend with the UFC, that fight night up in Vancouver. RDR, DeRitter, quitting on the stool before the fifth round. Now, a lot of people were giving him heat. A lot of people were, calling him a quitter, giving him crap. But he comes out afterwards and says, listen, I battled neurovirus all week. I could hardly stand. Broke his hand in the first round. Now, you got to give him credit for battling through all that. And, of course, something that happens in the fight, you're not going to know. It is what it is. Sometimes you catch it up with the announcing. The microphones could pick up him talking to his corner about it, or, him doing things differently, shaking his hand out or whatever. That happens in a fight. I don't got a bone with that. But this guy was sick all week, still got in there, and we don't know that, and we're betting on him as the favorite, as a guy who is a championship contender, and no one knows that. That's bull. A couple weeks ago, Jared Gordon, he got hit by a car the day before UFC Noche. We're running what was up with the leg sleeve. The guy got hit by a car, so goes out and fights. We had the fight with Pereira and Ankalaev, the rematch there where Pereira wins it. He talked about that first fight where he said he was about 40%, that he was not himself at all, and it showed in that fight. Nobody knew that beforehand. Let's even go back further, where you had in boxing, finally got Mayweather versus Pacquiao all those years ago, about 5 to 6 to 10 years too late, and Pacquiao was basically fighting with one arm, that his left arm and his shoulder was shot. Nobody knew. There is too much money on the line for us to not know what is going on with these guys. And I know the UFC doesn't want to put these things out. I know all combat sports do not want to put out injury reports like you do with the NFL, baseball, basketball. I mean, even hockey with theirs is just a joke. They don't tell you what it is. It's upper body, lower body. It's never actually the injury. But with all the gambling, with all the things involved in this, you have to be more transparent. Sure, fighters don't want to tell you because they don't want their opponent to know and be able to pick on them for that. But neither does the NFL. They don't want the quarterback, you to know the quarterback has a concussion. They don't want you to know that this guy is sick or that guy has a bad ankle. But they do. They put out injury reports all the time because it's about transparency. It's about letting us know they're legit. Because when you put guys in there that are not at the top of their game, we don't trust you. We don't believe it's real. Then we're thinking people are throwing fights, and we're not going to gamble on it, and we're not going to watch it, and we're not going to be a part of it. And being transparent, letting us know these things, it keeps all this other BS out of it, like you had with the James Krause scandal, where the guy was getting all this inside information. He was giving out bets to people. He was giving picks and making a ton of money off it because he knew everybody else in these gyms as being one of the top coaches, knew all these fighters, knew all these coaches, and was getting the inside info on who was banged up, who was going in there not at full strength, who was off, what things going on with these guys. And that is a big scandal. Now, it didn't blow up huge for the UFC, but if you get that continuously, if you get other guys that have done this, you've had it in other sports, you're getting it right now in the NBA. All these guys who are involved with these player props, or the coach that was giving them injury information about LeBron James to the mob. I mean, when people find out about that, they don't like it. They don't want to be a part of it, and they get the hell out of there. So if you really want the fans to lock in, if you want to get the betting involved, if you want to keep doing that because it drives up interest, which is smart for all sports, obviously you want to be arm's length at it. Obviously you don't want to be too involved with it because it makes it look like it's not legit, but you got to be legit with the information if you want this to continue and the fans to keep growing and being part of it. Now, of course, there's going to be a situation where, fighters are going to fight hurt. It's not good. It's not what we want, but a lot of them don't get paid if they don't fight. So they're going to want to be in there. Now, obviously, all athletes, all competitors want to be in there. They're going to play hurt. They're going to fight hurt because they don't want to be the one that calls it. And sometimes you got to be the one to protect them and keep them out. But it's especially true for fighters. There's no guaranteed pay. It's not the NFL, NBA, MLB, basketball where you get money even if you're not in the game. If you're out hurt, you're on the IL for 2 weeks, you still get paid. That's not what goes on in fighting. If you don't fight, you don't get paid. So maybe there's a way to change that. Maybe that's something we do and look into. The UFC is making billions of dollars off this new TV deal. Maybe there's some kind of guaranteed salary in there if you sign with the organization and you're under contract. Not, of course, huge, but something to sustain them so that if they get hurt, they can pull out without it being a financial burden on their family. And then you build things up with performance bonuses, or with you get this much for your wins, or the more fights you have, you get this for each fight instead. Somewhere where there's a base salary, base medical, things like that, because obviously they can afford it. You're making billions of dollars off the TV deal. Let's make some changes here, because there needs to be more transparency from fighters, from the organization, to the fans, to the bettors, because there is too much involved to have guys going in sick on norovirus, leg about to fall off because they get hit by a car, or their shoulder barely hanging on. We love the sports. We love being involved with it. We love gambling on it. But we don't love being jerked around and treated like idiots with guys fighting not at full strength. It's going to happen, but be transparent with us. Let us know. Give us the information, because otherwise we're going to think it's all a load of crap, and we're going to peace out and go watch something else. That's it for this week's show. Thank you so much for tuning in to Fighting Lines with Brian Ciano. Make sure you follow us on X at Fighting Lines, on Instagram, Facebook, and YouTube at Fighting Lines Pod. Follow us on YouTube, Spotify, Apple. Like, subscribe, give reviews, do all those things to help us out and build up this fan base with us. Tell your friends, tell your family. Doesn't matter if you like them, hate them. Let them know. Check out Fighting Lines with Brian Ciano. We appreciate you tuning in. Next week, we'll be back to recap what happens at UFC 321 and see who holds on to those 2 titles, who comes back from over in the Middle East with those belts. We'll also preview UFC Fight Night at the Apex between Garklan and Onama. Of course, not the biggest names, but we'll find some angles. We'll find some bets. We'll get involved with that as well. We'll also recap BKFC 83 over in Italy, who holds on to the cruiserweight title, who's moved on in the lightweight tournament. We'll talk about that, as well as that boxing fight between Parker and Wardley, and preview BKFC Fight Night in Michigan. Some interesting fights on that card. And we'll see who checks in, stops by, and talks to us here on Fighting Lines with Brian Ciano.